All right, Kathy, we're good to go.
Okay, thank you, Gretchen. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the meeting of the Human Rights Commission Community Awareness Task Force. I'm Kathy Ostrand-Ponchen. I'm the chair of the task force. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission. I'm from South Salem. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I will pass it to Susan.
I'm Susan McNaught. I'm fairly new on the task force. My pronouns are she, her. I live in South Salem, and I will pass it to Trek Carrico.
Hi, I'm Trick Erica. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission and a resident of Ward 2, and my pronouns are they, them, and theirs, and I'll pass it to David.
Hi, my name is David Reinhold. I'm a member of the Human Rights Commission. I'm a resident of Polk County, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'll pass it to Gretchen.
Hi, good evening. This is Gretchen Bennett, and I'm staff to the commission, and my pronouns are she and her.
And that
Marianne?
leaves me.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh,
you wanna introduce
sorry.
yourself?
I'm sorry. Long day. I'm sorry, Marianne. Welcome.
No worries. Thank you. Marianne Bradshaw. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I live in South Salem, and I'm happy to be a guest this evening at the meeting to talk about the discrimination survey that my class has done in the past and hoping to do in 2022.
Thank you for being here, Marianne. We just have a couple of quick items to get through before we get
Sure.
to that topic. Do we have any public comment, Gretchen?
We do not.
Okay. As far as the minutes, did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes from our February 23rd meeting? And would somebody like to move to approve them?
I move we approve the minutes of the February 23rd meeting.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Susan and Tricarico. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so they are approved. So that brings us to the discrimination survey. So Marianne, I was fairly new to the commission last year when the survey was just getting underway. And I was hoping, have you been involved in it from the first survey to the last one?
I have.
Okay. Well, for those of us who are new, would you mind providing a little bit of background about how we started and kind of what your process is on your end?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So I actually have taught at Willamette and at Western, and every class that I teach, I'm kind of a action, let's go do things instead of just talking about how to do them. So the first survey that I was involved in with the Human Rights Commission was in 2017 with a Willamette class. And that group of students did a project, and it was a little bit different than where we are now, but definitely questions around awareness. They did a dot survey at the Salem Saturday Market. And then my Western class has done the survey in 2021 and 2020. So there's a 2017 from Willamette, and then the 2020 and 2021 from Western. And I feel like the part of the benefit of kind of getting in a rhythm of doing an annual survey, from the 2017 to the 2020, we changed the questions up a little bit. That was a better fit for your objectives. But 2020 to 2021, the majority of the questions stayed quite similar. And so that allowed some more comparison year to year. Of course, year to year is different, right? 2020, as COVID had just, March of 2020 was when that all started. And that was right around, we had just closed field. And then 2021, we fielded in April and May. So a little bit different. And then the other big difference between those 2 years was in 2020, the class put the questionnaire together, and the city of Salem was so helpful to get it on the website and help us get it out. But Linnell Wilcox had said, if we're talking about discrimination, we have unsheltered members of our community who are not on Facebook and who are not going to just happen to come across this survey. And so she recruited some other advocates to help her, got the questionnaire in hard copy, and they did about, my recollection is between 30 and 40 completed surveys. among unsheltered. And the feedback from those people was really helpful and insightful and beneficial. So last year we said, let's make this a specific part of our design to make this survey more accessible. And instead of trying to do like a repeatable sample where we would just post it on Facebook, we said we want to hear from more people and elevate more voices. And so the design was intended to take the survey out broadly. And so we asked community groups to share the link. The city of Salem posted it on their Facebook page. We were very conscientious to have Spanish translation available and to make the messaging and the invitation to do the survey, not just only in English, but in English and Spanish. And we did, and Kathy, you were with us the Saturday that several students and I, with you and Linnell, went out with hard copy surveys. And so last year, the 2021 survey had a much bigger number of completes, and the students were able to analyze and present that. So I'm very interested to hear where you are this year. I feel like trying to keep the questionnaire, so the questions we ask, as long as those are still relevant and useful to you, keep them very similar to last year's. And then we would need to have some conversations today, kind of what you're hoping to learn and what the timeline looks like and how we want the outgo to go. Because we did, the 2020 approach versus 2021 were slightly different in terms of where we place the invitation. So those are just some of my thoughts and questions about where we're going.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments or thoughts for Mary Ann before I jump in?
I had one follow-up from your last meeting. I remember there was a question about, could the city distribute the survey link to media outlets in case the media would like to post it? And our communications folks indicated that they can, and they have the vehicle and the tools for that, but of course would defer to Mary Ann and the class for if and whether that fits the survey design and if it's appropriate.
Yeah, and that's a great opportunity. I definitely feel like the direction we went last year, where we said we want to distribute the survey as broadly as possible, make it accessible to more people, that fits to say, great, let's get the word out to the media and invite people to share the link.
Okay. When we've talked, yeah, that would be great. When we talked last time, I think we got really good feedback from the last survey. We got really good stories. The students actually shared their stories and experiences too, which was great to hear. And so I think if we can get more of that, that would be really helpful for us and also be able to compare the data. And so one of my questions is, what is the role of the students? Do they essentially take what last year's class did, or do they have some leeway in making changes, or how does that work when they get started?
So obviously one of the tasks with a project like this is writing the questionnaire, but there are a lot of other pieces outside of that. The class last year, I didn't want them to change the questionnaire drastically, but I did say, and I had them actually take the questionnaire of the year before and go through it as respondents. And I said, as you go through this survey, and most of them, live in Salem or in Monmouth or in the region, just answer it as a respondent, but just notice in the back of your mind if there's something that you're like, I don't know what that means, or I'm not sure what they're asking for. The response that I'm looking for isn't listed. And there may be questions that we go through that we say, we need to add an option this year, or something in our circumstances or our community has changed, or there's a question that, sometimes I go through a survey and I'm waiting for them to ask me this, and they never do. And I get to the end of the survey, I'm like, oh, well, I really wanted to tell you about this part of it. So I think having the students go through it early as respondents, and then I'll talk about in the class, some of the do's and don'ts of writing a good questionnaire. I don't think it makes sense for them to start from zero. and write a questionnaire that way. But even if we say, here's what the class did last year, what suggestions or comments or questions? And I would ask the commission, the task force, to do the same thing, to go through it probably before the students do it. And as you go through it and complete it as respondents, if you say, we had a bunch of conversations in the fall around this topic, and wouldn't it be helpful to us if we added a question like this? Or as I was answering this one, I could only check one, but I really wish that it let me mark multiple, mark all that apply. Those kinds of adjustments and niggles, we can certainly, I would rather make changes that make the questionnaire better than say we just have to stick with what we have so we can make it comparable, even if it's not as useful. So I would invite you as a task force to also go through it and give feedback. And it's amazing, you write a questionnaire and you go through it a dozen times and you think you've crossed every T and dotted every I. And then, sometimes I'll go through and be like, what? We left out of that, or there's no period on that one. And there's just some of the things as you go through it a year later, a fresh pair of eyes goes through it. I can almost guarantee, I think we fielded a great questionnaire last year, but I can almost guarantee there's a couple things we can do to make it better. So we will give the students the task of reflecting on the current questionnaire and accepting feedback and input to see if there are things they can do to improve it. But that is not the bulk of the work. A lot of the work comes around getting it out in the field, getting the word out, and then the analysis. The class is called Data-Driven Decisions. And so even though a lot of it is, let's go get data so we can drive decisions, the heart of the class isn't writing the questionnaire. The heart of the class is, okay, now we've closed field. And how do we look at the data that we've gathered? And how do we compare it to last year? And what are the big questions that you guys are asking? And based on the data collected, are there recommendations or are there opportunities? So I don't feel like giving them a questionnaire from last year and saying, we really want to field a questionnaire very similar to this. I don't feel like that limits their learning.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So what is, in terms of timing, what is your time frame? Because I mean, I imagine the class is only for a certain period of time.
Yeah, and that actually is part of the challenge. It's a 10-week term. And so it gets started and we're off to the races pretty quickly because we want enough time to be in field. And the in field is when the questionnaire is live. So once we've finalized the questionnaire and we've posted the link on Facebook and we're emailing it out, we've given it to the media, all the plans in place to get that invitation to people to say, hey, please take a few minutes to give us this information, give us your opinions on this. Some questionnaires are pretty tight turnaround, but a project like this, I want to make sure that we protect space so that it gets in field. And then sometimes this organization sends it out to their member list, but it takes them a couple of days, or somebody sees it and then they mention it to a friend, or someone gets it in their email and they say, oh, I want to do that, but they have to circle back to it. So last year, I think that we tried to have 3 weeks that it was live. I also feel like if we want, I just feel like in terms of accessibility, you can't have, not everyone's on a 24-hour turnaround. And in particular, doing the hard copy surveys, if we go to Linnell, which I'd like to, and say, help us to get hard copy completes again from our unsheltered neighbors, that takes some time. And we went one Saturday with the students and, Kathy, I think that day we did 30, but Linnell and her group of advocates, they did 200. Right. So because they had the hard copies across the whole window, then they were able to just bring us those. So the actual timeline, the class starts, the first session of class is Tuesday, the 29th of March. And what we have done in the past is invited some of you from this task force to come to the second class. Oh, wait. So the second class, I got to look at my calendar. The first class is the 29th. So the second class would be April 5th. So that would be an opportunity if any of you, it's all on Zoom. And I'm teaching on Tuesday nights and I'm in the later session. So actually the class does not start until 7:30. But if any of you would be available and willing to come to class on Zoom on Tuesday, April 5th at 7:30, then that's a great opportunity for the students to hear directly from you. And last year I shared a little bit about the previous study, and then some from the task force shared kind of thoughts and perspectives and hopes, and students had some questions. But then it takes just a couple weeks for the students to then, do the questionnaire, learn about questionnaires, make sure they've got it how they want. But I was thinking if we could be ready by April 26th to send the link out to be in field, then we could have 3 weeks till like May 10th or even May 17th would be the latest we could go to stay in the field so that the students would have time to do the analysis. So if we were ready by Tuesday, April 26th to get the questionnaire out, then if we closed field on May 10th, that's 2 weeks, and May 17th is 3 weeks. So that's the window that I am thinking.
When does the class end?
The class
Or when is your end date?
Yeah, so our last class session is May 31st.
Okay.
And then finals week is the week of June 3rd.
Okay.
Oh, nope, the week of June 6th. I got my dates right here, but I wasn't reading them right. Yeah, so, and the master's level classes don't always give a final. So I won't give a written final. The presentation will be in lieu of a final. So they could present back to you instead of a final that week of June 6th.
Oh, I was just looking at the June calendar and thinking about trying to figure out how to make that work, but the commission meets on Wednesday, June 8th.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that actually works well, I think. I don't want to speak for everybody else, but that's the evening of the June commission meeting. So I can connect with our chair. I don't see why that wouldn't be the plan. That's perfect.
My daughter graduates from high school that night. I'm looking at my
Oh,
calendar,
Kathy. Yeah,
but that takes precedence. Sorry.
for sure.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
Gretchen, last year we had graduation conflicts.
We
You and I
did.
Yeah.
That's right.
That time frame seems doable. If it does to you, as far as the opening it by April 26th and having the report out early June.
Yep.
So something I haven't been clear on, and I think it's becoming clearer to me, is what role do we have as the task force during that time? Or is it simply we just talk to the students and then they do it until it's time to report back?
So it definitely is talk to the students, but also getting the questionnaire ready. They will love your input. And so I would like to ask you to go through the questionnaire as respondents and give feedback to say, hey, this question raised this in my mind, or could we add a question like this? And it's been really helpful in past years for them to send an updated version and have the commission, another pair of eyeballs that's well-informed in this space and cares about the results of the data to say, yes, that looks good. Or, hey, when I read through it, I had this question or this thought. So I would like to ask somebody from the commission to participate in the finalizing the questionnaire discussion. I also feel like how the questionnaire goes out and how we get that invitation to people, the commission can be very helpful. And Gretchen in past years has helped us to communicate with the city of Salem so that it gets on the city of Salem website.
Okay.
But we definitely, and we wanted also in Spanish. So Gretchen, I remember we had some translation pieces, But if you can facilitate that, and then last year we sent it to organizations that had member lists. And, City of Salem has some great, culturally focused, different subpopulations where there is an organization that's a support network and they've got distribution lists. And last year I had the students brainstorm organizations that they had connections to. But I also think, if the people on the task force said, oh, well, I participate with this group, or I know this organization, or if you already have a list of organizations that you connect with in your work, I think it would be great if the commission could help us get the word out.
And Gretchen, do you have a list? I'm sorry, do you have a list of who it went to last year as kind of a starting point?
That's a good question. I'd have to go back and check. I know that we used the city's communication channels, and I believe we used our MailChimp, which includes that collection of community-based organizations that connect with a variety of identities, as well as just individuals who signed up to receive our stuff. I can go back and check if there was anything in addition to that.
It'd be a great starting place to just
Yeah.
use the same outgo as last year.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't hesitate to add other groups.
Mhm.
Okay.
I participate actively on the Basecamp app, for example, which connects with over 100 people who are either advocates or organizational representatives who help people who are unsheltered, for example. So I could post on Basecamp as an example.
That would be great. That's a great idea.
Any questions so far before we move on? And I think you may have already covered it, but are there any limitations that we need to be aware of for what the students can't do, or what are the parameters of their work?
One of the limitations is doing surveys with people under the age of 18. As minors, it is ethically appropriate to survey minors only with parental consent.
Okay.
And so when I do projects with students, we just don't go there. And so we ask the age question at the very beginning. And then people that indicate they're under the age of 18, we just say, thanks so much for your interest, and they're done. And that does limit some of the usefulness of the data, especially, where we're looking at minors and youth experience. That's not going to be an outcome from this study. I also would say, I guess one of the limitations is that this is a term and the term ends. And so sometimes, when you're doing an actual project, even with great preparation, there are bumps in the road, and sometimes there's a pothole here or something that we didn't expect. And in, my professional work doing surveys or my consulting work doing surveys, we're like, oh, well, let's just bump it out by 2 weeks, or let's just make this adjustment. And working with students a lot of these students actually will graduate at the end of spring. And so they're not going to say, oh, no problem. We'll just keep working for 2 more weeks. And so we are limited in that 10-week time frame. And then, the students who did the project last year, it's a different team of students this year. So we don't have that continuity except for us and me. But I feel like that has worked fine. I don't want this to become their full-time job. I know they have lots of things on their plates. And so I do feel like I've been able in the past to share the load among the students, and with specific deliverables, I kind of have certain students who take the lead on, writing the analysis, and then different students make the slides and different students give the presentation. So even though at the end, it's quite a bit of work, I feel like we've got a process that shares that load, but I don't, if you came back and said, we want to present it to these 7 different organizations, and can you make a different set of slides for this or that? I would say no. Like, we'll do the presentation on the 8th, assuming that date holds and works for people. And I would be happy if you say, hey, can you come back another day to say, oh, yeah, I can do that. And if there's a student or two who's willing, that's great. But I don't want to ask the students to go above and beyond what seems fair for the class.
Okay. I'm just looking at my notes. I think you've answered all of the questions I had before. So on the April 5th class,
Yes.
do you want to limit the number of us who attend, or if we're all available and interested? Or do you only want one or two of us?
I don't see any need to limit it. I would probably have anyone who's available and interested to come, introduce yourselves, meet the students. We'd have a couple specific questions and probably 30 minutes. Last year, the students had questions, but I don't feel like we're on such a tight timeline that having a few more voices and connecting is a problem.
Okay.
But I do know you guys are busy, so whoever can come is invited.
Actually, and last year on that Saturday when we did go around with Linnell, was that the students' idea to do that, or how did that come about?
So because Linnell had done in 2020 where she had gotten hard copies, I built it in as an option for the class in 2021. I am big on choices, and I really felt like for some students, that would be a meaningful experience and opportunity to go in person and gather feedback on a hard copy form. But I also felt like for some students, maybe they would feel uncomfortable, or we actually had a couple students last year that lived in Klamath Falls that were attending a class remotely. And so that week I had two choices. The students could either go with me and you and Linnell, or they could do interviews with people in their own circle. So some of them interviewed their roommates or their coworkers, and we did more of a one-on-one exploratory conversation around what does discrimination mean to you and what have you seen or experienced. And then we came together, and the students who had done the interviews, they had a guide and they shared, and the students who had gone and collected the hard copy surveys, they wrote up some of their experiences and shared. And I felt like it worked really well, that students could pick which of those two. And you go and you observe, you go and you talk to people. There's learning and opportunities. And I think it brought insights to both. And then it was a really interesting conversation for people to say, well, when we did this, this is what we learned. And there were some crossovers. They made some connections that I thought were insightful.
Okay.
I was wondering, I know Linnell, the Safe Sleep United director and an advocate, is willing to participate again this year. She's excited about that. Would it be important to do any pre-planning around a date or time, or is that a little early, or is there any outreach I can do to Linnell that would be helpful?
I actually did email Linnell maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was right after, maybe it was less time. Linnell and I had crossed paths, and then you had asked me about my availability. And I just said to Linnell, looks like we'll be able to do this again this year. Are you available and interested? And she was very enthusiastic and willing to be on board. I have not circled back with her this week, but I kind of thought after we talked tonight, if it's yes, we're all on board, let's do this. And we definitely want to include a piece of this to reach out specifically to unsheltered people, then I will reach out to Linnell. I think for me, the best day to go out is Saturday, the 7th of May. And I will check with Linnell. She was she just was so great the day that she took us. The students really appreciated learning from her. And so I would want to schedule that on a day that she's available. And last year, we invited you and Kathy was able to come, and we'd be happy to have people from the task force, or if there are other people that you say, hey, can we include this person? Great.
Mhm. Tricarico or David or Susan, do any of you have questions?
I do not.
So what do you need from us, Marianne, if we're gonna go ahead? Sounds like we're moving ahead on this, and I think we're all on board.
Yay. Okay, I'm seeing nods. Okay, awesome. We're going forward. Love it. Great. Thank you. Probably I need to know that at least one of you can come on the 5th of April, and I don't need to know that today.
I'm looking at my calendar. I can be there. It's no problem.
Awesome. Great. And then last year, Gretchen, a lot of my communication went to you. I know that there are protocols. I don't want to, I guess part of my question is around my communication. Do I copy everyone on here? Are there other people on the task force that ought to be included? Do I just send things to you, Gretchen, and then you forward them? What's the best process?
Marianne, thank you. I'm open to the group's conversation about that. Our only limitation is that we can't have like email discussions on things that are outside the public access. So whenever we do an email, we do BCC to try to prevent that because we do all of our work in the access of the public. We
Right.
can, if it's a subset, if it's not a quorum, and on this task force, quorum is 3. So there, it could be like 2 members of the commission, a little bit chatting, as long as we're cautious about that accessibility piece. So I would defer to the team on how you'd all like to have that. Because yeah, you're right, Marianne, questions kind of come up throughout the process or opportunities to weigh in and give input.
I would say send it to Gretchen so she can BCC us, and hopefully it's just one-off. And then if it's something that warrants more discussion, we can put you on the agenda for our meeting, and either we discuss it and get back to you, or you attend or whatever. But yeah, I would say go to Gretchen first, just so we don't accidentally violate that discussing outside of public view. I think that's what we did in the past, right, Gretchen?
We did. I think the one change was that we included Mike. So Mary as the chair, so Marianne would email Mike and I both directly at the same time, which is also fine if Kathy's open to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Great.
So if I have questions or I go to class and the students say, what about this? And I'm like, oh, what a great idea. Then Gretchen, I probably would email you, and Kathy, I'll email you. I'll just email the 2 of you together.
Mhm.
And then if you say, hey, we want the whole commission involved, then I'll leave that in your hands about the best way to do that. Tricarico, you did mention being on the agenda for a future meeting. And that reminds me, last year, I think that we just intentionally said like your April meeting, I'm just going to put that on my calendar so I can come. And that was a really good move because then I had some feedback from the students and I brought the draft of the questionnaire and we were able to, in a meeting, it can take a lot of emails sometimes, what you can do in just a quick conversation when everybody's heads are together.
Mhm.
So if you have the date of your April meeting, maybe
So
I could invite myself.
Our April meeting is April 27th, which would be the day after you had talked about opening the survey. So I'm
Wait.
wondering if we wouldn't want to meet the week before that.
Well,
If-
did you want to come to the entire commission meeting, Marianne,
Oh,
or just the awareness? I think you did the entire commission, didn't you?
I
I'm trying
think
to
for
remember.
that one, it was just the task force
Oh,
and
it
then
was? Okay.
presented to the commission after.
That's
And-
correct. We did the presentation at the full commission, but the kind of workshopping stuff was with the task force.
Yeah. So is the 27th this group?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I
Whereas-
think if I go to class on the 26th and we say, okay, we've got the questionnaire where we think it's final, then I come on the 27th and just any last questions, you guys can give the ones through. If we actually post it to Facebook the morning of the 28th, but we have the 27th as a touch point, any last questions, anything we need to resolve with communications department, any like questions around distribution, I think the difference in that day, if we finish it all the night of the 26th, to let me borrow some of your time, the meeting, the 27th, to say, okay, we're ready. We've got the ducks in a row. even if that means we're not actually in field to the morning of the 28th, I think that will work.
Okay.
And that meeting on the 27th, is that at 7 p.m.?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll put it on my calendar so I can join you for that.
Thanks. I'll make sure to share the link with you.
Wonderful. Great.
And so when there are questions to be reviewed, you will send them out to Gretchen and I.
Yes.
Okay, when they're ready.
Yep.
Okay. I think you've answered all the questions. I really appreciate you making the time to come tonight, and I'm excited about doing this again and getting more feedback. And the students last year did a great job. I was really impressed with both the ones that went out on that Saturday to get the information, and also the presentation. I thought was very, very good, very well done. So
They were great. Yeah, great group of students.
And Marianne, I don't know how much you followed, but some of the data from the survey was actually instrumental in getting some things passed with City Council.
Yay.
So Salem will be one of the few cities in the entire United States that has housing status as a protected class once the initiative is complete. And the comments that the students provided, as well as the information they captured when that day they went out with Linnell and Kathy and you, were a really big part of kind of giving us supporting information for that argument. So I hope that we can share that with the students so they can see that like this project was a really big part of doing something really important for one of our most impacted populations in Salem. So it's not just a fun survey, right? Like we use this for really important stuff. And yeah, I wanted to share that because I wasn't sure. And to me, it's my world, but I imagine most people don't sit in on city council meetings because that particular one was like 4 hours long because there was this whole tree thing and I was like falling asleep halfway through. So I ended up missing the thing. And then luckily Gretchen emailed me 11 o'clock at night, like it passed. And I'm like, cool, I'm going to bed. So it was really good information to have. And it really helped us get that passed unanimously. So thank you.
I am so glad to know that I did miss that city council meeting, so I appreciate the update.
Yeah.
And I am so like, it is very heartening to hear like that our city is taking action to do good and serve all of our residents, but also, you know, you work on a project like this and the students, it was something they really felt strongly about and was one of their recommendations, coached by some of you. But I do feel like there was data to support it. And then to hear like, okay, so you were able to take that forward and use it in a way that actually makes a difference. It's very exciting. Thank you.
You're
That's
welcome.
great.
Thank you.
Well, I think we've got a good plan. So
Sounds
I'll
like it,
see
yeah.
at least some of you on the 5th. I will make sure to send Kathy and Gretchen the link, which feel free to share with the task force. And anyone who would like to come that night is welcome. And then I'll come back to your meeting on the 27th and we'll just be in touch between now and then to get everything ready. And it's going to be great.
All right,
Thank you so
sounds great.
much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nice to see you all. Thanks
Thank
so much.
you.
I'm going to sign off. I imagine you have other business.
Yes.
Carry
little
on.
bit.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming, Mary Ann.
You bet. Nice to see you.
Well, that's exciting. I'm glad that we're able to do that. Is everybody gonna, do you know right now if you're gonna be able to go to the April 5th or
I
might be
don't
able
know
to?
right now, but I'm going to try.
Yeah. I put it on my calendar, so I'll make a point of being there.
I want to go. Don't think I would be worthwhile if anybody asked me a question.
Well, Susan, you know things about surveys. I think you'd know stuff. I think I can go too.
Okay.
Kathy, I won't be able to go out. I will actually be in an airplane at that time,
Oh, really? Coming or going?
going.
Someplace fun?
Las Vegas.
Nice.
Yeah, it's my wife's birthday and she wants to watch Lionel Richie in concert.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Nice.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, so back to the agenda. Gretchen, is there anything else on that before I move to the next topic? I don't want to move too far ahead. So the next topic is the unsheltered communities. Do we know, is there an update on where council is with, or staff is with the Chapter 97 updates?
I don't have a specific one. No, I know Dan's working on it. He and I talked about making sure that I have a draft that I can carry back to you all and we can share with people with lived experience. You'd also asked if there's things that we can be preparing towards a media packet once this does come back to the council. So I also have that update for you. Communications believes that they'd likely, initially at least, be able to move forward. You know, they have the information about Salem Revised Code. They have the recommendation that you've all made, the link to the last year's discrimination survey. So they didn't have any initial questions and would be prepared to, you know, do something in conjunction with when this comes to council. They appreciated the heads up and the recognition that that would be smart to be ready for. And I let them know that the team stands ready, you know, if there's particular areas or questions or things that we can help with, you know, we're here and ready. So I had that conversation with the communications folks.
So in looking, I know I had a task coming out of our last meeting, and when I went to look at my notes, I really wasn't clear on what it is that I thought I was going to do. And so I'm hoping that, is there something with the survey coming up, and then with really nothing happening yet on the Chapter 97, is there something else that we should be doing, or are we kind of in a holding pattern as far as communication regarding the unsheltered? I was hoping to get your thoughts and maybe take better notes tonight on what.
No. I'll tell you what I remember from that conversation, but people may have other thoughts, which is the, I think you were wanting to get your mind around what would be some content approaches, maybe key themes that would be helpful by way of educating the broader community about some of the myths and misunderstandings around people who are unsheltered. Like a common one is the criminality, you know, and I repeatedly see communities trying to communicate about a person being more likely to be a victim of a crime than commit a crime when a person's unsheltered. And the likelihood of committing a crime diminishes when a person comes into safety, like transitional emergency shelter or housing. Things that debunk myths.
Mhm.
I remember the team's discussion around humanizing things with stories and examples. So if my memory serves me, I think you were wanting to put some thoughts together around what could be some content areas or resources, but the team may have other memories of that.
And that sounds familiar to me. Thank you. Does anyone else remember or have thoughts about what that, and then my question about also is about the timing of that. Had we decided to wait until there was more progress for both aspects of that, for the circling back with the unsheltered community as well as the community outreach aspect of it?
I don't recall a firm decision, Kathy, on that. I think they
Okay.
could be paired or could not be paired. I could see both being possibilities.
Anyone else have thoughts on that? I see it looks like
Kathy, I guess I didn't, for some reason I was thinking about something else. Was the question about what we talked about when Chapter 97 passes, what we do as awareness? Is that what we were talking about?
well, we had talked about the communication having two pieces. There's communicating with the unsheltered community about, you know, we've gotten the survey feedback, we've heard some of the issues that they have to deal with, and to let them know that we're here and a resource, but also kind of a community education campaign, like what Gretchen was just talking about, with some of the myths and some of the things that some of the stories that we can use to humanize, and whether those two things go together or timing wise, or if they can be done separately.
there was another thing we talked about was trying to get ready for the press that might come possibly because we were one of the first cities to do this.
Yeah. And it
Mhm.
sounds like Gretchen, that they're already working on some of that.
Yeah, when I checked with the communications team, they felt they could take the lead on making sure there was a media packet. They kind of identified different pieces that you've already provided. And so I just indicated that if they discover gaps in that, I
Mhm.
know the task force is willing to be a resource.
Okay.
But they'll certainly take the lead since it'll ultimately end up being a city council action. You know, it'll be natural for them to communicate from that.
Mr. Carrico, you look like you were thinking a minute
Yeah,
ago.
I was just trying to think. I mean, I feel like they have a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna trust them to kind of handle that and then reach out if they need it. I really have no desire to interact with the media. So if they want to do all that, that'd be great.
I'm with you on that one.
I mean, I will if I absolutely have to, but like let the professionals handle it, you know?
Yeah. Well, it seems to me with the Chapter 97 updates coming up and with another survey coming up, that maybe there's not a lot for us to do until after we get some more progress,
Yeah.
but still be collecting ideas and thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's going to be so much buzz around the survey and the Chapter 97 updates that we'll probably have plenty of content and things to send out for a bit. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of, not to jump ahead too much, but I wondered if the survey becomes the awareness communication for April, hearing that it would be in the field near the end of the month. I wondered if that's the April communication piece is take the survey, you know, and we'd want to be thinking about what we'd want to write around that. I don't know if any of you would be interested in developing content. I don't mean to jump ahead, but it
No,
occurs to me that that fits really nicely.
yeah, that makes sense, Gretchen. Even if for some reason we didn't launch in April, I think it would be appropriate to send communication saying like, hey, we're going to launch, you know, because I know sometimes these things you need to like tell people 5,000 times before it actually gets through, you know. So it wouldn't be the end of the world, but assuming that everything goes as planned, yeah, that would be a great communication for April.
To go out before the survey to let people know it's coming, or to go out with the survey, like when the link is ready to go?
Yeah, if it goes out April, let's just send it out. But if for some reason it was going to get delayed till May, we could do it in May. And it's, how long is it open for again, Gretchen?
I heard she likes to do 3 weeks open.
Okay, I mean, it might be worth doing one in April and one in May, you know, one towards the end of April, one towards the beginning of May about the survey. Because again, you gotta beat people over the head with them to get them to do it usually.
Yeah. So just the other events or commemorations that are on our list for April are volunteer recognition, autism awareness, and day of silence. And then in May, it's Asian Pacific Islander, Jewish American Heritage, Older Americans Month, and International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia. Just that's what's on the list. And then June is Juneteenth and Pride. So I think that'll be a big, so I'm okay with that plan, if that makes sense to others.
It does.
Circling back to March, I want to appreciate Tricarico for sending out for all of you the March communication. And I don't know if anyone wanted to talk about that or had feedback, but I've got it. And I know we were intending to send this out on March 31st.
I thought it looked great. I didn't have any suggestions or changes.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the theme is actually from the UK. So
Oh,
if we decide not to do that, that's fine. I mean, it's not like the official thing. I think they literally were just like, hey, let's do a theme. But I liked the theme, so I included it.
I liked it.
I
Okay.
do too.
Okay, so then for April and May, we'll communicate about the survey. Anything else on that or any other thoughts?
Mm-mm.
So the last thing is member remarks and announcements. I did have a couple of things I was going to ask about. From our last full commission meeting, I wrote down a possible task for us with the boards and we talked about the boards and commissions and maybe doing some more, or in my notes, what I wrote is doing some more targeted recruitment and possibly using the email lists that Gretchen uses for that. And so I wanted to at least raise it in this meeting. Is that something that we want to maybe think about tackling at some point? Or is that just something that Gretchen, that you would do? Is that, I think you may have been the one that suggested it was an awareness task force item, possibly.
You know, although I can't remember that specifically, I agree. I mean, I think perhaps if you're open to it, part of awareness is spreading the word about the opportunity to serve on the commission.
Mhm.
I was talking with one other person who thought that a position description of a commission member might be a really helpful tool, because she works with youth and young adults, and I was telling her about how our youth position is open again. And the first thing she said is, well, do you have a position description that's written in a way that a youth or young adult would find accessible? And I was like, I think the only position description we have is for the chair and the vice chair. So that might be an example of another task, is an accessible, freshly written, like, hey, this is what it means to be on the Human Rights Commission. This is the experience or what it's like. So that's an example of an awareness piece that could be developed and thought through here, if you're open to it.
Thoughts about that?
I'm open to it. I used to work in recruitment, so I wrote stuff like that all the time, but it was dry, boring state recruitment. So we might need Angelo's help to make it not sound like you're recruiting for someone.
Yeah, don't use the state language.
It's not a youth. Yeah, you know what they look like, Kathy.
So is that something we want to maybe tackle after the survey? I don't know that there's any huge rush.
I would think so. I mean, I don't know how much we can accomplish in an hour a month.
Yeah.
Kathy, would you like me to put it on a tickler for maybe like the June task force meeting? Because by then the survey should be done.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
And then the other thing I was going to ask about is, did the commission have any discussions, probably not last year, but in years past, does anybody know about tabling at the Saturday market? I think the NAACP does that, and I'm just wondering if that would be an opportunity for awareness.
The
We
city
haven't.
itself actually has a table I just found out
really?
about. And one idea would be as if a commission member wanted to join with other people from other things at the city, or you could have a separate table. And I felt like I interrupted you, Tricarico. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was going to say, I don't think we have in the past, but I was a part of the group that did the NAACP tabling, and it was actually a lot of fun. Because I think there's like so many information booths that the Saturday market allows, that I don't think you even have to pay for it because you're not selling anything.
Mhm.
No. So I think that would be a really good option, because the NAACP found it to be a good way to kind of just talk to people and spread awareness.
Okay.
So I think it'd be a great idea if we have, support, and also, I think you wouldn't do it every week. Like the NAACP got like once a month, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that would be doable, and also a really good way to give opportunities to the greater commission on tabling, because I know people are looking for things, and that's, outdoors, and you could still wear a mask if you wanted to, so it's relatively safe to accommodate different comfort levels. So I'm all for it.
So would that be something to ask at the next full commission meeting, to see if there's others who would be interested in participating in that too?
Yeah, I would think so, because it's always a challenge to get enough people, because if we're there for 3 or 4 hours, like we need a couple people to rotate out for like breaks and stuff. And so we just want to make sure that we have at least a couple people who could kind of regularly commit to that. I don't think that I could regularly commit to that. I could maybe do like one. And then, yeah, see how everybody's feeling about tabling, because they may not be ready for tabling, right?
Yeah.
The last tabling opportunity that we put out there, we had one taker, but we did never discover a second one. And the person concluded that's probably a lot for just them, like just the schlepping the items alone. So
Yeah.
decided to wait till a future opportunity when there might be more people interested.
Okay, so there won't be somebody at the, is that the free market, right?
Yeah, that's that on
Okay.
Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
So that just got called this week because we never did find a second person.
okay. Okay. Well, I'm thinking as the weather gets better and as restrictions lift, there might be more opportunities for us to get
Yeah.
out there, but.
And I
Well,
know
make
this
it-
is Salem Kaiser spring break. I don't know how that affected things too.
Yeah.
That might have affected Sunday.
True.
Okay, well, I'll make a note to mention that in our, in the update for the next full commission meeting. I think that's it for the agenda. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to raise tonight? So we've got our next Marianne's class, I think is the next thing for this group, and then the full commission on the 13th, so. Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you for rescheduling around at least my vacation schedule. I don't know that we would have rescheduled if it had just been Gretchen, but I appreciate that. So. All
Yep.
right, well,
Thank you.
thank you. Everybody have a good night.
For all the